Get in rain? Oh, the other day was morning. What we really got at Fargo, I mean, and South they got in 3 hours. I mean, she said,
Oh, yeah, why? Oh, you know.
we should have just came here today.
Well, it's 9:30. I'd like to continue the hearing from
the
meeting before, and we do have a gentleman on the phone here who is a petitioner. I understand, Myra, is that correct?
That's correct. We have a petitioner from Fairfax Station, Virginia, that's on the telephone that wanted to just listen in on the hearing.
Is there something you would like to read here prior to beginning?
I do. I have a letter for the record, and it's written by Ken F. Kubetsky, PE, 9184 Silverline Drive, Fairfax Station, Virginia, 22039, and dated June 9th. And it's addressed to Mr. Leroy Ossie, Secretary of the Red Lake Watershed District. The subject is Red Lake Watershed District, ditch number 15, project 175. Dear Mr. Ossie, I have reviewed the detailed report furnished to me dated February 2013 on the proposed improvement to ditch 15 and find it complete, and address the purpose of reducing the impacts of local and regional flooding. This was all supported by the PowerPoint presentation sent to me that was given at the public hearing, and felt it was complete and covered the project as well. This engineering report would lead to improved capacity by providing a uniform cross-section ditch and grade along with improved culvert capacity to reduce the overall land flooding. Although my land parcel 02.001141.01, section 31, township 153, range 47, northeast quarter of the northwest quarter, already has an existing ditch that requires only minor improvements of the ditch cross-section. However, I'm willing to support the entire project, even if the end result is little to no improvement to the reduction of flooding on my land. Several years ago, I undertook a ditch improvement on my land at my own expense. However, as a professional engineer, I can see the need to improve the overall drainage of ditch 15 as a completed system. I understand at the May public hearing, there were some property owners who objected to these improvements as they questioned the amount benefited to their land. These subjects result in the board deciding to hold another public hearing following the review of their concerns. In the spirit of cooperation and by signing the original petition, I feel that this delay and additional cost to the landowners is nothing short of a waste of my money. With the major improvements to the drainage system provided by ditch 15, the actual incremental individual cost per year is very small, and the present price of commodities would be less than the cost of a few bushels of wheat or other such grain. I encourage the board to take a positive position on this project as a landowner. I've already spent a large amount of funding on engineering reports and 2 public hearings, and at this point in time I have nothing to show for it but a paper report and a couple of landowners complaining about benefits. This project needs to be put up to contract bidding and awarded to the low bidder as soon as possible in order not to lose the whole construction season and the possible loss of crops due to possible land flooding without the improvement ditch 15. Any further delay would only increase costs and further possibly cause flooding that could have been prevented by the improved system. Please enter this letter as part of the proceedings of the June 2013 hearing. Sincerely, Ken F. Kubetsky, professional engineer.
All right, thanks, Myra. I think the 2 things we need to address here today is number 1, we have this is fitting off from the last meeting, the concerns that we had to look at a 10-year versus a 5 or 5-year versus a 10 from May. And then we'll get into the viewers. We had some good discussion with them. They came up with some different big thing with the benefits. To the public information that the watershed district is going to put up $200,000. The district continues for the enhancement of the rent outlet. And I think we'll start it off, Nate, with you. You can give us a little brief.
Thank you. There may be a few new faces here from the last hearing, so I just wanted to establish the context of the project here. You can see where the project is in extreme northwest Minnesota, so to speak, here, up here, and the ditch runs from Whiting County Ditch 2, then easterly all the way to the Brant Almond. There's Here's another map that shows kind of the old benefited area of County Ditch 2. And right here is where this ditch establishment would begin, and then again would follow its course all the way to the Brantley and Hallman. So that's the project that we're talking about today in the continued hearing. The update is that a hearing was held on May 23rd, and a report was given by the engineer, and the viewers also gave a presentation, as well as the board here received comments from the public. So bringing us fast forward to today, I was requested to provide a cost estimate for a new ditch alternative, having a 5-year frequency capacity as compared to the 10-year design capacity that was presented at the final hearing. Construction of an establishment, or it really amounts to a ditch improvement, regardless of size or scope, requires a lot of the same elements, whether that's construction, quantities, or administrative, through the ditch establishment process. So items such as right-of-way, culverts, and overall excavation, they can be reduced when you go to a smaller capacity channel, but cost reductions are not linear. In other words, if you go from a 10-year to a 5-year ditch, you're not literally going to cut the cost of the project in half, because you're going to spend money on a lot of these upfront items regardless of the size of the project. So when I do present the cost, you will find that it is not literally half the price of the 10-year capacity ditch. So what we looked at were kind of 3 different alternatives. The 10-year capacity type channel that was presented for $2.13 million. What that offers landowners, petitioners, and really everyone involved in the project is a ditch that can handle significant rains downstream of the impoundment, draining the farm fields, as well as leaving a sliver of capacity to dewater the impoundment if necessary, on top of really ample drainage performance for that system. Looking at a 5-year capacity ditch then in the middle, you still have what I'll call a 5-year ditch. It still will be a performing ditch, but what happens is you go with a 12-foot bottom instead of a 15-foot bottom proposed for the 10-year ditch, and then you have much less capacity to dewater the impoundment. Then you just have a tiny little sliver of capacity if downstream areas are draining and or flooding. So it's just simply not as big a ditch. It doesn't have the performance of the proposed alternative presented at the final hearing. And that cost for the 5-year ditch then is $1.61 million as compared to $2.1. And then lastly, I just want to point out what you have today then in selected locations in troubled areas along the system is a ditch that has about a 1 to 2 year capacity before you'll often see problems on a regular recurring basis, as most of you know. And the watershed had a bit of a concern trying to dewater the impoundment a 3 years ago after they had stored significant rains from the east. So they went in and they actually did some drainage work. And so the existing condition really isn't to anyone's satisfaction. So whether you go from here to here or up to here, it's just kind of a graduated scale. I don't think anyone agrees that today that everything is as it should be. So just finally then, just an example then, that these are the general approximate locations of problem areas, just to kind of show you that if we do nothing at all, these areas will continue to have general problems with impoundment dewatering, with the exception of this up here is more of an area that has issues with County Ditch 2 and more spring flooding. But that said then, what else could we do? What else could be done to reduce that 5-year design? So I throw out a few alternatives that could decrease the $1.6 million for the 5-year design, but they're not necessarily preferable or something you would want to do, but I just want to give people a little food for thought. And one of them is just an example of doing something different with culverts at a particular location. Instead of lowering the existing concrete pipes, we would just put in a very small 36-inch pipe to kind of keep the ditch on grade. It would basically be a low-flow pipe. You could reduce the overall project cost by $76,000 by doing that. And there is a relatively antiquated crossing down on the west end of the project that I guess, could be either ignored or removed to another savings of $55,000. And then finally, a real big ticket item on this project is side inlet pipes. And typically when a watershed does a ditch establishment or improvement, they want side inlet pipes. It's in everyone's best interest, the watershed, the landowner. But that is a huge cost of the project. As you can see, $175,000, that's like 78% of the project for the 10-year design is in those side inlet pipes. And of course, there are a lot of them. And there are government programs that will defray that number, but I just wanted to get some big ticket items up there for discussion later on and your consideration in this overall discussion. And that's all I have, Dale, so I'll take any questions from the hearing, make it to me.
I think what I'm going to do, Nate, is probably put the viewers up, and then we'll just kind of open it up for questions after everybody, we've heard the discussion. I think the viewers have some pretty good things here to maybe comment. Jerry, would you like to go through the points that you need first, as far as what do we have, about 4 different things from the last meeting that we need to address?
Yeah, we'll get close here. Let's see. Oh, this doesn't work.
Just right in front of it.
Okay, well,
No, right in the circle. Right in the circle. It's not even plugged in.
I think we have the tile, we have the 2 areas of wetlands, the right-of-way issues, and then of course the benefits would be the biggest thing.
Okay. This is based on where we left off, with some of the questions at the hearing. We went back and there was a request to look at adding some area based on some tile ranges they wanted to do, use the ditch for an outlet. This is up in section 30 of Angus. We've got about, in the red, 114.2 acres. And to bring that in, we've looked at it, and we're looking at about a benefit of $200 an acre just for the tile outlet. The rest of their water surface goes to the northwest. Next item that came up was wetlands, which we wouldn't apply benefits, and there were some wetland restorations that were done. This is a 71-acre area that was included in wetland permanent easement. Those are being recommended to be removed. That originally was in at conservation rate for 71 acres. We're recommending as taken out altogether. Another area was where the watershed established a project and right away. Currently the report shows a 1-rod strip at $31 an acre, but because it's basically conservation use right now, that 1-rod payment we recommend to reduce to a $3,000 acre rate on A. We got the area, section 23 of grant. Again, wetland restoration that was put in permanent wetland easement, 102.6 acres. We did have some benefits on that. We're recommending to be removed for the area removed. And then there's some discussion on direct benefits. And when we did the direct benefits, we provided the watershed district with the calculation used consistent with the drainage manual. And the baseline that we used was for the 2-year event. So basically looking at benefits for that length going from 2 years and in the report there were the design full rates for the 2-year and 10-year, so the changes that would occur. Since the meeting, there has been some discussion on some areas that have improvements. This is something that we had not incorporated originally, but it is a table that shows flow rates existing versus the proposed 10-year design. So what we did is we went back and we mapped those to show the areas that basically would have improved capacity, which would be in red, based on the 10-year design. And then those areas that aren't highlighted would be areas that basically have had the improvements that would not show a full increase. So based on that data, what we're recommending is that we should take another look at benefits basically in 3 areas coming through the point.
And that silver there.
Yeah, we're looking at, basically what we're looking at is the rates should be similar for similar properties then for this reach, and this reach. So, and currently right now, these are 550, 550. I don't know if that would change much, but definitely this would be probably similar to those rates. Second item is that in the preliminary engineering, and then you go to the new hydrology in the final report, there is quite a change as far as the amount of increased capacity that this reach will have. We actually gave this a $200 additional credit for 2, but what I'm thinking is that there's a portion of this that probably would jump up $100 in benefits, just based on the flow rates. We're going to keep everybody similar. Got to keep this reach similar. But at this point, we're just looking at the data. We have not, and it takes a little bit of time, we have to determine the reaches of property, the area of property affected by these 3 reaches.
And is that something you would contact the landowners on that between now and the next hearing then?
If we're getting input, we take any input we could, because we want to define those reaches. Then what we do is use the flow rates for the individual reaches here to recalculate those values. But the outcome I'm assuming is going to be that the rates for similar property are going to be, for, say, this reach of property, this one, and this one. Those rates are going to be at the lower end of the direct benefit rates and similar. Everything else should stay the same except for possibly this reach in here. This is at 550 right now. That might jump a little bit based on the increased capacity they're going to get from the project. All I got.
And I think that's kind of what, from what I heard from the petitioners, is there's been a lot of work done in some of these areas that have pointed out that the landowner, the area, all these things, done a lot of work prior to, but probably getting a little bit more compensation for their thing right now.
And I think we're, as we talked last time, a continued hearing is to try and narrow down the issues, and the 3 issues that the members have that I'm aware of is to reduce the cost, which we're talking about with the 5-year and maybe these additional call. It's the first I heard of them. I haven't had a chance to talk to the petitioners. I don't know what they think about side inlet pipes. So some of that we'll have to react to before the next hearing or figure out what the, anytime you have several petitioners, people are in a little bit different positions, so we'll have to see the contribution from the watershed of the motion this morning for $200,000, and then the assessments, and again, without talking specific petitioners, because I don't know, certainly that was one of the big issues just before the meeting and other meetings we've had, is that some credit should be given because it does reduce the cost of the project for people that have actually done the work themselves in the past. So what those numbers are exactly, you know, I assume before the next hearing or as soon as possible, Jerry will be putting it a finalized recommendation that can be sent out to us so that the landowners can.
Jerry has a comment.
Yeah, I got one more thing. What we're talking about here, this is based on a 10-year, okay? That would mean basically that these reaches being similar at the lowest end of the scale. But I know there's talk right now about a 5-year. If we look at a 5-year, then these benefits we have to look at it differently. My assumption would be, though, if the petitioners want a 5-year project, these being lowered to the lowest end of the scale for the 10-year probably wouldn't change much if it goes to a 5-year. If they go to a 5-year, then the ones that are going to probably see change in the benefits are going to be these reaches, for the properties that bring to these 2 reaches. So basically right now in a 10-year, 1, 2, and 3 should be similar rates. We have to look at these again now based on this flow. The only thing that might change in the red would be this one reach. But if they go to a 5-year, he's probably going to change much more, but the ones that would then change at 5 would be reach, like say 4, 5, and 6.
Maybe right, this is a little bit for Jerry and Nate. If I understood Nate's cross sections of the 5 and 10-year, the 5-year for the localized drainage along that reach is pretty similar to the 10-year. The 10-year allows grant impoundment to have a little bit more freeboard, a little bit more safety. I just want to make sure I understand this right, that from the localized drainage along the petitioner's property, the 5 and the 10 isn't going to change their drainage a whole lot. It doesn't give grant impoundment quite as much freeboard, but they won't see much difference. I guess, am I correct on that?
No, actually you're not. The 5-year ditch will handle roughly a 2-inch rain, 2.5-inch rain across a broad watershed, and the 10-year ditch will handle a 3.5 to 4. The enhancement is that the 10-year ditch also offers more room for impoundment dewatering. So it is not an equivalent. The 5-year and the 10-year are not an equivalent ditch from a local drainage perspective, by any measure.
Tony, you look like you got something you'd like to say today.
Well, I want to talk to the viewer about the two, I see 2 lines in there they're talking about, they're going to re-look at the work that was done, but there's another area just before where ditch 2 starts, and the landowner is here. I don't need that thing. It's right at the edge of the red line. And, yep, right there. And from my understanding, that whole area was in excess of a 10-year ditch, and is that going to be reduced as well?
I don't believe that was in the 10-year design. It might have been in work done on it, isn't it? But it's not in the same capacity as these other two when you look at
Let's show it at the table, but I believe on this whole reach, this reach is similar as far as the increased capacity. If we pull that table up, we'd have to look at it. I think this almost doubles capacity for these folks in the red.
But if there was an area that the landowner wanted, similar to these other reaches, they certainly could ask the viewer to come out and take a look at it.
Yeah.
I'd like to ask a question when it's appropriate.
Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, my question is between the 5-year and the 10-year, and it was a little hard for me to hear some of the discussion you were having, is the upgrading of the drainage structures different than from the 5 to the 10? In terms of where you were replacing a significant number of pipes, and if you look at the table 6, you had a replacement of a number of pipes. And would the 5-year plan then eliminate the replacement of those pipes?
No, several of the culverts in
Can
the...
you hear from back there?
Can you hear this?
There's an echo in the background. I can't hear very well. I guess what I'm asking is that if you are not going to change any of the drainage capacities from the 5 to the 10-year, then all you're doing is changing the excavation costs by reducing the number of cubic yards dirt removed.
Your last statement is essentially correct. The difference between the 5 and the 10-year design for culverts would simply be you might be able to downsize a few of the structures and you have that minimal decrease in cost, because most of the culvert work is essentially to get the ditch to a different grade.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
It's a lower flow type pipe, and so you have a proportionate decrease in culvert costs, but it's not significant in the overall.
Just a discrete increase or decrease in material costs from say a 36-inch pipe to a 24-inch pipe, whatever. So, okay, that answers my question. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, we touched on all the subjects we kind of wanted to get through.
I did just want to touch on the sidewater inlet pipe discussion. I did talk to Randy Huskamp. I'm not sure if he's here, but at any rate, there is, time to sign up for equip should this project go into construction next year, which in all likelihood there's not going to be any construction issue just from a timing standpoint, even if it proceeded. So there is some cost saving, although at this point, we're still, there's already some landowners that have already applied for equip, and that funding is probably about all we're going to get is the landowners that signed up for them. So, there is still, it's still substantial reduction in the sidewater inlet pipe cost, but it's not as much as I was hoping. And there may be more funding that becomes available later. We don't know that, but just for the record, those who did sign up are pretty much in the docket right now for the funding for next year. And if any more funding comes up, but I'd surely encourage, I mean, whatever direction this goes, 5-year, 10-year, or whatever, but if it does proceed, then I would go to the NRCS to have some discussion on cost share of the sidewater inlet pipe, because it does pay for about 75% of the total cost. So that's significant.
But when you get that support, don't you get some different regulations on what you can do and can't do?
Actually, this program is really good. I agree with you, Ken, on a lot of federal programs that you have to be careful what you ask for. But this program is actually really good. It works very well for these types of projects, and it's very favorable.
So does it compete with all of those in Minnesota?
It's a federal and a state program that's combined to come up with these costs. So the state is helping pay for some of this funding as well. But it's one of the joint ventures between federal and state that come up with the 75%.
But do you know how much available is? You know, you say 75%, and I realize that there's got to be a cap on the amount of money that they're got.
Well, yeah, I don't know that number, but I wanted to say around that $50,000.
Okay.
From Randy.
And I would just agree that a lot of government programs come with strings attached. I've used this around the state on projects, and to my knowledge at this point, there have been no strings attached. You're not agreeing that because they gave you money for the side inlet pipes, they have somehow control of your land. I haven't run into that. So.
No, this program is very good with that. The only, they have regulations on how to install these sidewater inlet pipe, but they're not really different than what we would do under normal conditions.
Okay, this is only for the sidewater pipe.
Correct.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't understand that. Okay.
Okay, are there any other, any board have any more questions on this? Okay.
I just got a comment on the side inlet pipes. Now, I mean, I don't think you, personally, I think they should be installed now. If you have to come back and do it later, it's going to cost a lot more money. And, and the maintenance on the ditch is a lot less, because you don't have the deltas in front of each ditch. And then looking at it from the state with MPCA and the way they're meeting, I think we should do it now before you're made to do it, or in the future. Who knows what they'll come up with.
I think these guys are pretty proactive for doing things right away. I mean, it's pretty silly not to, do a half a job here. I mean,
we use that now in Ditch 10 down there, like, no complaints whatsoever. Everybody was 100% happy with the equipment on the side of it.
And we did use it on this last project last fall, and on the improvement to the legal drainage system right here out of Peterborough Falls. And it was significant cost savings. There happened to be more money available. I think it was 10% of the project cost was paid for just in sidewater inlet pipes. And you see the number, the percentage is about 10% of the total cost of the project is, based on the 5-year issue sidewater inlet pipe.
And I think the bigger thing is going to be the benefits here. I don't think we're going to keep nicking on this little culvert deal here. I mean, but we've addressed the concerns that were to be put here today. Are there anybody that would like to take, sir?
Could we ask more questions now, or they're not part of the meeting?
Well, we'll have a final hearing. We're going to hopefully continue this on to July 25th.
I had asked along County 21 there, if we clean the bottom of the ditch, if you do some elevation, if we need to lower all the crossings that are in the field and along County 21, whose responsibility that would be. I'd asked at the last meeting.
Right.
And have you looked into that at all? Or?
Brian, we haven't looked into that, but I know what typically the counties, and we have a county representative here, but he's more the ditch inspector, but the highway department, typically any permit that's delivered to the counties or the watershed districts, it is the landowner cost to lower the pipes. And I don't even know how many pipes there are there.
I think it's quite expensive for me if I get the cost of having to lower all the pipes and cleaning that ditch, besides getting excess at that 550 like everybody else is.
Right on, and that's really something, and Jerry, is that something that the viewers can look at, what it cost, you always have a fee based on the viewer report on what, you always leave some money left for the landowner to get the water to the ditch. It's something that Jerry could definitely look at.
Yeah.
We did include a private improvement cost and into that number. So, I mean, we can look at that again, but we included that $200 in reduction on Recon Ditch 2 because that's $50. For the lands to the east, there's like $200. I think it was brought up at the hearing last time, but there's like a $200. Let's back up here once.
This is the,
Let's go back up here. Yeah, that's smaller, but you're in area 2, so basically the land value was determined on average at $4,100, and then without project $3,000. So the total benefit to land with drainage was $1,100. Then you took out private improvement cost of $350, and then another $200 for ditch 2. So there's $3, $4, $5, $50 in there for the private improvements, and that's what was allowed for getting the water from your property over to the ditch. You know, we could look at those numbers again, but you know, we felt those were adequate. That's how the 550 came about.
Kurt, I'm going to turn to you on behalf of the petitioner. Have you felt that everything has been addressed here that we need?
Well, we got a lot of new and I think positive information today. I haven't had a chance to talk to all the petitioners before I kind of say anything. We need more specifics. This was all good information, but Jerry's got to put together so we can see on paper, or the petitioners can see on paper. But yes, we've addressed what I think were the three. They can correct me, but I'd like to know if any of the petitioners just have general questions. I think we can save a little time at the next hearing. Maybe they don't, but until they see something on hard paper or exactly what it's going to cost them. But if anybody has any questions, I'd encourage you to ask them.
Anybody have any more?
Sure. Is there any change in the pipeline? If you have to mold it or take it, what are you going to do? Just widen it there? Where the pipeline goes through?
Yeah, right. We're just going to widen it right over the top of the pipeline. The ditch will be at exactly the same rate as it is today at the pipeline. We can't get under the pipeline, or it's a fixed hard spot, and so that's all the designs. Just basically go over the top. There's no cost.
Just make it wider then.
Just wider.
and Nate, in your opinion, just widening allows for capacity to transport the flow, just, with a 10-year, it has no issue as far as drainage. The capacity itself, the width of itself will give it the adequate capacity for 10 years.
Yes, and in some cases, of course, you're getting a flatter side slope as well. So it's just the bottom widens, the side slopes flatten, and you get substantial more capacity by doing that.
Nation?
I know we're still working on it, we're still discussing it, but as it stands right now, what would it cost me on my piece of that?
I think you were at $14,000 assessment. I think you were with the benefits.
With the benefits reduced,
Yeah.
but yeah, individual dollar amounts, and we don't have that in front of us today. I mean,
But that's before if you continue to
Yeah.
July 25th meeting, we will get a new viewers report, or maybe two viewers report. One is a 10-year, one is a 5-year as it sits, and one is a 5-year with these reductions. Just so this gentleman and other people can...
But you get more than the property owner's report. I don't see it if you're doing another property owner's report.
No, not the whole property owner's report, but I don't think the board would want to approve a viewer's report without seeing it in writing, because you're going to have to attach that to the ordinance.
That's what I'm asking to continue.
Right, no, we don't need a whole new property owner's report. We need just the synopsis that I can show the petitioners and say, all right, under these changes, this is what it will cost you.
Yeah. And that would be within somewhat of the process before the next hearing.
Right, it makes no sense to have another hearing unless we have that, so that you're in a position and they're in a position to know where they sit
Well,
on.
definitely, that would come up in the next.
So the sooner the better, because the petitioners may want to meet prior to that, and again, it's a little bit like hurting, not every petitioner's in the same position, but certainly, I think I can speak for the petitioners that the changes we've heard today have been addressing some concerns we heard at the last hearing, and I've heard meeting with them too.
Sure.
I've got a question directed to the viewers. How do you determine a value? This is in Tabor and Northland Township. On your benefited area, when one, they got a ditch 2 assessment, and 2, they got a watershed ditch 6 assessment. And what?
Just from a standpoint, there's no land in Northland Township that's being assessed to this property.
According
No, don't be confused with the county ditch 2 benefit area.
No. This was on your map. It showed north of County Ditch 2 benefit area.
Right, in Tabor only, not Northland.
Are you in this benefited area, Richard?
I'm speaking for the township. The chairman asked me to speak. Yeah.
But if we can go to the map, so maybe the viewers can answer his question. So are we addressing road benefits or land?
Ag land benefit.
Ag land.
Are we, are we up here, Mayor?
Yeah, this is Tabor Township. Northland's over here, there's no benefit there.
So what's the question on this?
Question is, how can these people here pay benefits to the improvement to this system, County Ditch 2, and some of them may pay into Watershed Ditch 6, which I believe is here. And then Watershed Ditch 5 is up there.
Yeah. What we looked at is the drainage. I think what got brought up during last time was that with the changes here, this new ditch system is picking up 2 miles of County Ditch 2. So we've got a change in the system here, and currently County Ditch 2 has its own benefited area. But it was recommended as part of this proceedings that there be a redetermination of benefits on 2. Because basically what we're ending up with now is we've got areas in here now that have their direct benefits to the new drainage system. And it's also part of the County Ditch 2 system, which they're paying at the, say at the higher rate there, because this was originally part of the Ditch 2 system. Okay. So basically to address that, we recommended that, that's county jurisdiction. And at the meeting last night, it was discussed that landowners in the watershed district were going to have some discussion with the county. It can be driven by landowners. That would have to be changed by
My question is, what new benefit would they get from this proposed project?
It's their outlet for the system. They outlet their water into the system.
But they're paying on ditch 2.
That should be correct.
But all these are paid on ditch 2.
All these are.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to continue on here.
But just one thing, I'd like to make one point. I know I'm not just made to look at that, and it is 2 different boards, but they're paying a direct benefit to ditch 2. Part of that ditch 2 is now going to be ditch 15, if I'm following this right. So you shouldn't be paying direct benefits to 2 and 15. So again, we've talked about this 2. You get reduced if you redetermine 2.
But we can't redetermine.
Right.
We can only look at the project in front of us for benefits.
I realize that, but I mean, if I was those landowners, I'd say one of them has to be reduced.
But they can go to the county board and request it.
Well, Richard, we're going to move on here now. I mean, we've had the process of the preliminary and the hearing. We're here to address the concerns in the last one.
Can I have
start
one
something
comment?
new?
Ditch,
Last one.
yeah, ditch 2 benefit area goes up to County Road 23. So there's an area that got to be looked at.
And that's
That'd be protection, not benefit.
Okay, Jerry and Roger, you guys are willing to prepare in the next month to look at these benefits, get some records and meet
Yeah,
with
if we could have, before the next hearing, Mr. Chair, excuse me for keep interrupting.
You just want these mini hearings going on, don't you?
No, I want it finished. I drive along, I love it, but no, I've got so many projects in other places in the state that I don't need more trips to Thief River Falls. But my only issue is because I think it makes a better decision for the board.
Yeah. Well,
is that on a hard copy, Nate have, so that the board knows what they're approving. If it's this cost, it's kind of an option, which Nate's done many times. Option 1, option 2, option 3 with some of these side inlets. So that's pretty simple, but if we could see that in writing, and then as soon as possible for the landowners, so they can compare to say, all right, it was reduced from what we first thought to this, so that the board knows when you're approving it, if you approve it the next board meeting.
Well, and I think you're exactly right. This is part of the process of the hearing. We're trying to get these answers to the questions and continue
We
on.
appreciate that.
And I mean, there's a lot of knowledge we gain by we just don't want to rubber stamp something, get it done. I mean, these people are going to be paying for it.
No.
So I mean, there's no objection for us to try to push this down somebody either. We try to get away from the 3.5-hour meetings.
You don't want to force it, and I don't want more hearings. So if we agree on that, we're fine.
Nate?
Kurt, are you expecting then from the engineer some sort of a memorandum or addendum to the detailed survey report?
Yeah, just something on it doesn't have to be,
I think we can get the benefits and give them pretty close numbers here prior to the hearing, and
just an addendum to the engineers. Here's option 1, here's option 2, a 5-year, here's option 3, reducing the inlet pipe. Pretty much what he said, but just so you know what option you're approving, and same with the viewers. Not a full property owner's report, just here's the original, here's with the reduction to 5, because he's got 2 reductions to make.
And I mean, basically, that's how we just say our first one.
You're saying a benefit area map, basically, what you're saying that this is what it was, now here's what it is. You can do the math themselves,
Right. I mean, it's pretty easy to figure that out.
Yeah, it's a percentage.
All right, this time I'm going to close the hearing.
Wait, one more.
You're about out of questions too. Go ahead.
I just want to, in my mind, the next hearing, what are we going to expect to get answers to? I mean, I heard at this meeting, I thought we were going to get some answers, and we look like we're going to get another hearing. So what I'm trying to avoid is when we go to the next hearing, so we don't get another set of questions to have another hearing. And so my sense is, what are you going to come and bring to the group at the next hearing?
Well, I think the next group will be the different benefits, the numbers.
Different benefits. Now, with these benefits, let me ask the question. Is if we save $1, are we looking for benefits that's got something like a 2-to-1 ratio, or are we just talking about a small amount of money and we're costing money to do this?
Well, it could very well
make sense to me that we could go ahead and look at benefits if it doesn't have any real value. And this is what I would expect you people to be able to determine whether there are some real benefits or not. And if there are any benefits, why do another hearing? I mean, the benefits that you might gain are being spent on a hearing that's being taken place right now. So I guess
I'll try and answer.
The benefits you're going to come through with are on alternative 1, 2, 3, and 4. Is that correct?
And that would be right.
I'm going to let Kurt Dieter, Ken, answer that.
Okay.
If you're worried that the cost of another hearing is anywhere near what we've reduced the project cost, both in cost and potential reduction in benefits, it's not even, another hearing is a few $1,000s at most.
Yeah, but hearing is time. If I lose production on my land because it gets flooded because we've waited a whole year, that's money to me as well. I'm not being critical. I'm just saying, this has been going on since April, and I just can't imagine on a $2.3 billion project that we're going to have 4 hearings. I mean, my God, we build things better than this with a lot less involvement. And I realize it's people's money, but when you decide to buy a combine and you decide whether you want to have
board couldn't do a decision today because you don't have an amended viewer's report. So there's nothing the board could take action on today, even if they wanted to.
Yeah, I understand that. I understand that. But what I'm getting at too is, will we have enough material at the end of the next meeting for the board to make a decision?
I would say yes.
I would say yes, and let, you know, subject, I can't imagine what else could come up, but I think everybody's hope is at the next meeting, we'll have things on paper, hard numbers, it'll either be voted up or down, or whatever the board.
Okay, all right, that's what I'm, yeah, okay.
Yep, I think we've covered all the angles that we need to cover. We just felt, and I agree with you in a lot of aspects, but we're sitting here, you're sitting there, we got the people here that got some concerns, and we feel that the board, for our knowledge, we need to address them.
Well, I don't deny that.
Okay.
I've lived in this area for 50 years, and I never went to a public meeting where you got up and everybody spoke for it.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Ken.
Okay.
I'll move we recess this hearing to the 25th.
July 25th, continue the hearing to July 25th, got a motion?
What time you have to set time? 10 o'clock, you said?
Doesn't matter. What, 9:30? 9:30. So, continue the hearing to July 25th at 9:30 by me. Second by Orville. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
See you guys in July.